Chameleon Academy. We are here at the wonderful time of. Oh, wait a minute! There we go! There we go!
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Scherz.
Hi.
All
So
right.
it seems to be working now. I had some difficulties with my connection with my computer was not accepting using Chrome as the browser. So
That horrible computer.
So I'm gonna... Sorry?
That horrible computer.
Yeah, ridiculous. It's going to be a little bit. We're going to set up. We still have to strategize what exactly we're going to do. So we're going to be taking a look at the shelves. And
okay, by the way, Mark,
around.
We are actually live right now.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, perfect. Okay, go ahead. So you're.
So I'll turn you around. This is Daniel. Daniel is the collection manager, curator of herpetology here. And
hello, Daniel.
For her. So he's here.
Okay, we're the audio is a little bit choppy, but we're gonna deal with it.
We'll have to see how it goes. Yeah. See if the internet will hold out anyway. Seems to be a little bit rough. Okay. We have to see how the internet holds out. We're kind of working on hope.
Okay. We're there.
Super. Okay. So yeah, I'll do an introduction where we are in a minute. Let's just strategize what we're gonna do and figure things out. So I guess we need to take off everything.
We can start with some of the easier ones.
Yeah.
Because these probably don't need anything.
Exactly. So anything that's already in the modern genera probably doesn't need to move very much. We just have to figure out. So I would keep the genera alphabetic. So
all right, folks. So we are in the storage area of the Museum of Denmark.
And I guess we'll just go from there, basically. So,
and we are exploring what is on the shelves there. We're with Dr. Mark Scherz and Daniel.
And these,
they're working out a tour.
This is all just Mallory?
This is just Mallory.
Okay.
This is, I've sorted this roughly.
Of what is behind the scenes at a museum.
Yeah. Right, so that's the question. Do we want to pull everything off first, or I guess Brevicorn makes sense to start here, right? We're starting alphabetically. We're going from left to right. Yeah.
All right, Vertipodium. That's a genus of chameleon. And so we're really doing this by the skin of our chinny chin chin, and we're flying.
Exactly.
We're just going to see how we can make this work. So hang tight with us. This is going to be.
As we work, we're going to pull a lot of the animals out here onto the table that's in front of us, and so I'll give you a little bit of context. If the signal will allow, let's see. We are in the herpetological side amphibians. Don't know how. Probably.
Oh. Yeah, our signal is just hanging on by the barest fingertips.
Yeah, by the barest thread, huh? So it seems I won't be able to give you a good idea of where exactly we stand. But behind me are all of the rest of the reptiles and amphibians. And actually, these shelves that you're looking at directly, these are turtles. The tortoises, I guess, are on the other side. Yeah, and To the left here, we have all of the chameleons where Daniel is, and actually down the end we also have skinks, right? So the chameleons are sandwiched a little bit between the skinks and the turtles, which of course evolutionarily, biologically doesn't make any sense, but we work with the whole system. And so basically what happened is there was a large amount of uninventoried chameleon material that was sitting on these shelves, some of it for probably almost 100 years, right? Oh, very old, right?
These books from the 60s.
Yeah, mostly from the 60s. A lot of it is from the Copenhagen Zoo. And so they're not necessarily wild-caught animals, but there was a lot of also wild-caught material that had data, but just hadn't ever been entered, because over time, it's a lot of work being a curator and collections manager and getting all of the different material into the online systems that we use. Or it used to be a paper system. Maybe I can show you guys the paper catalog later. It's really a huge task. So the consequence was we had a lot of material that hadn't yet been sorted onto the shelves. That material has now all been given a number. It's been entered into the database. And now the big task is rearranging the taxonomy, because it hasn't been updated since Camellia was split into different genera. So we don't have Columma, we don't have Furcifer, and we don't have Trioceras properly sorted in there. And so now we're going to go through and take the stuff off and kind of update it. And yeah, to that end, I guess we should get started. And if we pull Kimyangia.
Yeah, there's also Brevicorn.
Yeah, supposedly, but why is it in brackets?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get the book so that we have the taxonomy so that we can just check, make sure everything's in the right genus. Although we can do it as a quiz for the watchers, but it's more efficient to do it in the book.
All right. Now, folks, to everybody watching, just know that this is a museum. Hello, Daniel.
Hello. I can show you just some specimens just so you can see how it looks. So what they are stored in alcohol of them. So it's in 70% ethanol. And what you do also is you will, depending on the size of the animal, you will fixate the innards in formaldehyde. And then you'll clean that out, and then you will add them into alcohol then. So that's my most important job, is to make sure that there actually are alcohol in everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does the museum use these specimens?
Yeah, so this is for scientific research. So that's really nice. We hired Mark now, because we actually been without a herpetology curator since 2005.
Okay.
So it's really nice to have one scientist that can actually go deeper into, always go back, and we can help people that want to come here to study these animals. They have been able to do that, but we had never had one that could study them here and make a plan for the whole collection.
Yeah.
So we had just maintained it for the last almost 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, and of course we had a lot of guests coming, because it's a very famous collection. It's quite an old collection as well, so it's the oldest specimens is from the early 1800s. So it's a very famous, for herpetologists, at least some herpetologists.
Yes.
And
So,
we are very strong, especially, but so.
So what's the nature of the study that scientists would use these for?
All kinds of things. So we've got taxonomic work going on. We have a large type collection of material, especially of with nice snakes. We've got a few fun geckos and monitor lizards and things, and then a really nice type collection of frogs from Southern Africa. So a lot of people are working on taxonomy, but if you want to do something like a population diversity study, if we've got the material for it, a lot of people will come to add a small part of their data set as well. So if they go to visit, let's say, 6 or 7 different collections, they would then come to us. They would measure all of the animals that we have, or look at all the animals that we have that are relevant to the questions that they're interested in, and go from there to the next collection and do the same, and then they build these data sets. So the museums across the world sort of function as a reservoir for the data that we are interested in getting. That way you don't always have to go to the field and catch new fresh animals every single time, so you don't have to molest too many wild animals. Unfortunately, that comes at the cost of depositing dead animals in these collections, but as Daniel said, some of these things are already over 200 years old, and in the mammal collection we even have material that's much, much older. So there's some very old stuff here, and in a way, most of these animals, especially chameleons, as the viewers should know, live only a very short time, but in the collection they have a lifetime of hundreds of years, and if maintained correctly and somebody really looks at them and takes care of them, they can last indefinitely, as far as we know, once they're stored in ethanol. So
okay, all right, and so
the heritage.
And so for hundreds of years, scientists can use these same specimens to do their study.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent.
And
okay.
If people at home have their own pets and they die and they're in good enough condition and you're close enough to a natural history museum, you can always ask them if they want the material to keep it for study. It's possible that they would like to have that. So some of these animals are also pets or from the zoo, or, they have to be preserved properly. Best thing to do is whack them in the freezer as soon as they die, and then they can still be preserved nicely. But yeah, so some of them are. This one, for instance, is from the zoo. This is hold that up there. Any ideas?
Is that a bifidus?
Nope.
Kingyongia machii?
It is a Kinyongia.
All right.
But it is fishers. So it's fishery.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And this one's from Copenhagen Zoo. So a lot of zoos also, chameleons don't live very long. So they go through a lot of stock, and we have a very large collection. You'll see some of the Mellery later. We have a huge number of Mellery on the shelves here because they're big and impressive animals, and it's easy to to get a lot of them into the collection. So the books I pulled out, these are going to be the references. We have the Old Testament and the New Testament here.
Yes.
This is, of course, the Field Guide to the Herps of Madagascar. Remains the golden book for all reptile and amphibian identification of Malagasy herps. I don't really need it because I work in Madagascar and we don't have that much material from Madagascar. But I do need the Tilbury book for a lot of these things, because in some cases I'm not really sure which genus they're now in. And so, especially because we have a lot of the Chameleon, we're just going to check, make sure it goes into the right place. If it goes in the wrong shelf, then it might get lost, and that's always something I want to avoid.
Yeah. Okay.
Super. Yep. So yeah, let's keep pulling, huh? And I can show interesting animals as we go through them. So this is actually this is a whole jar of Fisher's chameleons. You see, we wind up with a large collection, and these are 6 males and 2 females, all from 1963. So what happens is that the zoos put their animals into the freezer, and then we get all of them at once. So this is
now. How would somebody study one of these things? Do they take them out of the formaldehyde?
Yeah. So it's all ethanol, and in fact we don't use denatured ethanol, so you could actually drink this. Wouldn't recommend it, but in theory, it's the good stuff. In many countries, for instance, in Germany, they don't allow you to use the good stuff because the tax is extremely high. So you have to use denatured ethanol, which can't be drunk, which is much cheaper. But yes, you can pull this out. It doesn't hurt the skin. In many cases, they've been stored originally in formalin. Formalin is bad for the skin. They're long-term. They're kept in ethanol, but that formalin doesn't go away. So in theory, they are still carcinogenic for a time after they've been in ethanol. Even after a long time in ethanol. But machi, what else we got? Yeah. That's all Kinyongia?
For now.
Okay.
Because then they're mixed in with you.
Exactly. That's my concern. We're going to run out of space real fast. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we don't have a shelf specifically for fishery yet, right? Yeah, so each of the so each of the shelves has a label on it that says the family, the genus, and then the species if there's one species, or there's a list of species if it's multiple species. So
Okay.
this tray, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 15, 18, that has 19 jars in it, which is at least 19 specimens, all of Kiniangia vosleri.
Okay.
So that's how we go through, and in many cases it's actually a lot more. So as I showed before, we have these mixed jars, multiple different individuals. In this case, all from the wild. These are all from Mozambique, West Usambara, Tanzania. So there's lots of really useful data in there.
So a little while ago, we just totally broke up the fishery complex. Was this used in that?
It wasn't. It's also, so there's going to be some degree of old, like misidentified animals that would now be moved into a different species. We don't have the ability to go through and re-identify absolutely everything in the collection. So some of the things are going to stay misidentified in the collection for the time being. If someone then comes in and says, oh, I want to study fishery, they look out the fishery and they say, those aren't all fishery. Then that is when it kind of becomes possible to reinterpret them and pull them out. So, okay. Machi, Vosleri. Yes. And then we need to do...
This one is the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to? Should I check the other Chameleons that we have and see?
So I have already done some sorting here. So
yeah. Okay. Maybe if I go through with a pen, this will be a little bit difficult to see. I'll try to rearrange the thing here. That is the least stable arrangement possible. But yeah. So,
The most adventurous.
yeah, so this is Columma.
Yeah.
That's a Brevicorn. We have Chameleon, Triceras. These are all Triceras. Chameleon, Dilaphus. Gracilis. Gutsy is still in Camellia, right? Gotta check.
I think so.
I think so. Okay, then we have Namaquensis, Nazudis, that's a Columma, so that needs to come out.
Well, here we can check here.
Versifer, Trioceras, Columna. Okay, so they're actually almost all. Yeah, it seems like they're all already pretty much sorted through the. Oh, we have an Archaeus, that's nice. So that goes alphabetically first. Take that one out straight away. Tinui. This is actually not on the label here. But that's interesting.
Guetsy is Trioceras.
Yes, Gutsy is Trioceras. That's good to know. Thank you.
Got my copy right here.
Perfect. Okay, so thanks, Bill.
Yep. No problem. Help however I can.
Yeah. Exactly. So we have here a shelf that has just 3 species in it, but they're interesting ones. So this is the Seychelles chameleon, Archaeus tigris, which is important because it's alphabetically first. So we have to put it on the first shelf. And it might actually wind up by itself in a box because it's its own genus. Yeah. And then we have here Rampholian moyeri, which is nice. This is weird. I think these 3 are actually in the wrong box because none of the species are in that. None of these 3 species are on that label.
Okay.
Except for Archaeus is there, but yeah. Yes. And now's the quiz. Tenuis is is it Triceras or is it, look up by species in here.
Which species are we talking about?
Chameleon tenuis.
Oh, tenuous. Oh, wait a minute. That's not Chameleon anymore.
No, it's not in Chameleon anymore. The question is,
Right.
is it Triceras?
It's Kinyongia.
Kinyongia. Okay. Nice. So that's Kinyongia tenui.
There, just some
Yes.
starters.
Super.
So there's only one of the.
We only have the one Archaeus,
Okay.
and then we have a Rampholian moyari, which will go with the other Rampholians, which I'll put that up there.
So just make a.
Yes.
For the starters.
Just one box for Archaeus.
Yeah. Made you
That- Yeah.
We have one of our audience asking if you have a preserved fish collection there.
Yes, a very large one.
I think we
Okay.
did. I think we have one. Is it 1 million or half a million? I
It's
can't
at least a million.
remember. At least a million specimens.
Oh,
I think.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, because of the signal being so bad, I can't show you around, but we have actually a really nice mammal collection just behind us as well. So
Yes.
that's, it's an awesome museum. If you're ever in Copenhagen.
Yeah, so maybe it should so we have around 10 million specimens in the zoological department, and that's very roughly because there's also insects, so we might even have much more.
Oh, wow.
But I think the herbs is around 60,000, and the mammals is also around 60,000 specimens. So that's the smallest.
Although I realized actually yesterday, the 60,000 specimens comes from 60,000 jars.
Yeah.
Half of which have more than 2 specimens in it. So it's actually closer to 100,000 specimens.
Yeah, but again, we don't have there's never been like a complete go through, so it's estimates everything. So it's
Hopefully in the next 10 years, we'll have a really good estimate of how many animals we actually have.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yes.
because we have 24,000 specimens in the databases, so we still need a lot
Right.
more.
It's only a fraction of what we actually have is databased at all.
Wow.
That's not to say many of them are in the paper database.
Yeah.
But the paper database is something that we can't immediately rifle through. I'll actually go get it in a minute, and we can take a look at it.
Whose job is it to update all of that? You're our hero, Daniel.
And the mammals as well.
And the
so-
mammals as well. It's a huge
Yeah.
task.
And the mammals, I'm actually alone in that. We don't have a mammal curator, so I do most of the mammal stuff. So and then now we have Mark. So I'm really happy that we got Mark to help me with this because I'm a mammal expert.
Uh-huh.
So the herbs came with the job. So I'm learning, but really nice to have one that actually are an expert in it.
Yeah. So I will delabel this because it's no longer really needed. That is very helpful. Thank you. I've already ruined my fingernails.
Oh, no.
So, if anybody else has questions also about specific chameleons, if there's anything that you're interested in seeing, that I can also pull things out of their jars if you want to look at them up close. Not that
Really?
I don't know how it is, but if you're interested, I can't do it for very long because we do actually have to get through this. But yes, if there's something that you really want to see, if you want to see a really big Mellery, we can pull some of those out.
Yeah, let's pull one out just as a demonstration of what scientists work with.
Yeah. Oh no, it's okay. I don't know.
So
So
maybe we can take.
here's a decent sized Mellery. Yes, thank you. Protect the Bibles.
We do have a question as to what's the rarest specimen you guys have.
So we have the one, the anoles from the king anole. So the U.S. islands, they used to be Danish, and then we sold it to the U.S. in 1917.
Uh-huh.
We have the distinct reptiles from those islands.
Okay.
So we have, I can't remember the name now, and then we have the anoles. I think it's called king anole.
Yeah,
the big
I can't
one.
remember which
We
one
have
it is.
like 3 specimens of that in the collection. So that's some of the rare stuff. So some of the extinct stuff we have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there are plenty of animals that we have where there's only a single specimen as well. And yeah, those are obviously extremely rare because there's only one. But in theory, most of them are still alive, like they're not extinct, so you could go get more. Some of the things that are extinct are, of course, then really, really hard to get. I checked. I don't think we have any of the extinct Atelopus frogs, toads, but we do have, for instance, a dodo head.
Oh, okay.
Is one of two pieces of dodo material that's actually,
and that were collected when they were still alive. So that's the main difference.
Yeah.
So we have some cool man. We also have a spider. I know that there's only that one specimen ever found.
Yeah.
From that species, and we haven't found them since. It's a very weird story, but so they found a new species that's only been found once, and we have that one, and we haven't ever found it since.
Yeah. I think we have some of those in the herps too. At least in the type collection, we've got some species that are only like that. So here's a big Mellery. We can show you. So here's the tag. All of our specimens are tagged with a paper label that is actually hand printed, because things are still done old-fashioned, old school here. And so what is it? The 5-1, does that indicate chameleons? Or, yeah. So 5-1 is the code for chameleons, and then we have the individual code that's 586. That doesn't mean we have 586 chameleons. It just means that's the number we've got.
Yeah, but it should be around
but it should be around there, right? Yeah. Okay. So this one's also from Copenhagen Zoo. Died in 1963.
Wow.
And and you can see
we do have a question from Karn the Randomant asking, how fast do the specimens deteriorate as like colors fading once they're preserved?
So the colors of chameleons actually disappear almost as soon as they die. Most chameleons turn very blackish when they die, and then they kind of fade back to a somewhat more neutral coloration. And after that, they don't change very much. Over 200 years, they will eventually become very pale, almost white. But it's a pretty slow process. If they're fixed in formalin, they maintain their color a tiny bit better than if they're fixed in ethanol. But they're not as fun to hold. So I prefer fixing in ethanol because ultimately the color doesn't matter that much. So
it's actually very random also sometimes when they lose the color. So if you see some of the other herbs, these guys, they still have a lot of color. But and then we have some of the other ones that might be just as old that have just lost everything. So and then they also, many of the green snakes, at least, they turn blue because the yellow color sort of disappears first. That's the reason.
So yellow is almost always the first color to go. Red also typically disappears, but there are some exceptions. Sometimes the red is made of it might be a structural color, and the red stays for decades in ethanol. So you can actually tell a little bit about the chemical basis of some colors based on how they behave once the animal is preserved. Now,
how does this, Daniel, do you have to change out this, what was it? What is the liquid?
It's just ethanol. So it's just pure alcohol.
70%.
Yeah, ETOH.
Okay. Now, Daniel, do you have to change out the ethanol?
No. So generally we don't change it. So if we start to see a shrink in it, so it starts to evaporate, then I will probably I can put on 96%. So if you put on 70%, you will keep the percentage lower. You need to put in 96 if you're just topping up. If it's very far down, I will probably change the whole jar because then there's something wrong with the lid, and then you'll put on new 70% alcohol completely.
Okay.
But there is a lot of things for these smaller jars with the plastic lids. That's it's not fabricated anymore, so that's a problem. So when they go, we need to go into new jars, and that's these types, the Berg jars we use now. But they also use those, so that's why we.
A lot of the practices at this museum are modeled on what the Smithsonian does.
Yeah.
Just for interconnected reasons, the two museums have quite a bit of exchange.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've seen a bit of a Mellery.
Yeah.
So we keep pulling out the Vertipodium, or the Kinyangia. Yeah. Moyari. yeah, so we should sort out the entire Rampholian thing into species as well. Yeah, I'd like to
We have no idea what they're going to pull out next.
Yeah.
I might have done already. Because, but I'm just going to check.
Yeah.
So this is yeah, I think I took everything out.
Okay.
What is this? Oh, that's oh, this one.
Oh, yeah. So this is Vertipodium. Well, haha.
It might be even be.
So it says Camellia dameranus on the label. It
Okay.
says from the zoo, and then it says with the collection locality Madagascar.
Okay, so we have a couple of updates to do there.
Right. The question is, what is it?
Yeah, number one,
It
make
is a
sure it is.
Brevicorn, so it's definitely not from Madagascar. Yeah, I would guess that dameranus is probably the right identification for it.
All right, so what's the difference between Danoranum and Danoramus?
Grammar, Latin grammar. And if I don't know the root of it, I don't know exactly which version it should be when we have it. So it should probably be Dameranus. Vertipodium is masculine, probably. So you know the gender of the genus.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Dameranum. Yes, so it's a masculine genus. Exactly. So it was originally described as Chameleon dameranus by Boulanger in 1887. Moved into Lophosaura damerana by Power 1932. Fast forward by a long time, and wind up with it as a species or subspecies, depending on whether you follow specific taxonomies. But we're going to keep following the Tilbury taxonomy. So
Okay, so if something was Danoramus under one genus, but then the genus changes masculine or feminine,
it
then
could
sometimes
change.
this.
It shouldn't ever have had. Oh, it did actually have a US, but then it comes to UM for whatever reason. It's an interesting point. I actually don't know.
I know there's some butterfly people. They are actually starting to scrap this,
Yeah,
so they don't want to rewrite the letter. So they just keep the original name all the time, even though it's a different gender. Also because it's a mixed language, so it's not really like it's Latin everything. It's also a mixture of Greek and everything. So maybe it makes sense.
This chameleon is misidentified. So this species is this chameleon is misidentified, almost certainly.
What?
But the problem is we don't know where it's from because it has the collection locality Madagascar, which is certainly wrong.
Okay.
So we have to know.
It says here on this one, it says it might be
of Pumilo, which is Pumilus.
Yeah.
But Pumilum now, Vertipodium. But I think that's also wrong, actually. So, do the Google...
Now, what would be wrong about it? You mean the gender?
No, the species identification. So this chameleon is misidentified. I can give you a little bit of a close-up. You see it has large tubercles along the side, flank, and it has very strong... Try and get the thing to focus here. It has... don't drip ethanol onto your keyboard. Not recommended. It has very, very strong spikes on its head. It's not right for being Dameranum. So I might have to re-identify it later, actually, because it's not an easy key. Gular lobules cones usually overlapping anteriorly. I guess they're overlapping anteriorly, yes. Tail shorter than snout vent length in both sexes. That's longer.
Wow. This is a totally new world, especially for those of us who identify all the species by color. And maybe some shapes
Yeah.
of the head.
I wouldn't generally recommend that. Enlarged mid-flank tubercles. Background scalation heterogeneous. Markedly heterogeneous.
So what happens when there is a sudden change in classification? We all of a sudden bring in Kinyongia, and then we break open the Fisher-eye complex.
So at the genus level, it winds up us doing exactly what we're doing today, which is resorting some of the collection. At the species level, it usually takes a lot longer for it to sort of come through. It's just a lot of work to make these kinds of changes. And if you were trying to keep on track of, species change all the time. So they change multiple times a year. It's just a huge amount of work to try and keep track of all of that. So in general, we wind up not following every single change and kind of waiting until someone asks for a specific thing, and then we might chase it.
Yeah, I'll make them do the change.
Yes, exactly.
So that's also, you can see we still keep the old labels. So this one, it will stay. This label will stay here, and also if it's completely re-identified on species, I'll probably make a new one and put it in front of it. But you have to save the labels. So yeah, and sometimes we don't change the label either in the other ones. We just put a new one in next to it, and then you'll update the tray here, because the tray is just to sorting, so that's not that important. But the real important stuff is on what's on this label in here. Yeah.
We do have a question. Is there any chameleon species that are just completely unknown or possibly new species?
In the collection, maybe. We don't know. We haven't seen them all, or I haven't seen them all, so I can't say for sure. I think this is probably Thamnobates. So there's always a chance that we find something on the shelves. Very likely we have some material from Tanzania that is about to be described as a new species, because we know that there's some taxonomic revisions that are in the works.
Okay. Oh. We have a signal issue, but let's hang on and see if it corrects itself and brings them back. All right, everybody, hang tight, hang tight. Mark, you're frozen on our side. I assume I'm frozen on your side. But yeah, you all just hang tight. We're going to see if they come back. Oh, no. But this has been really cool so far. All right. Yeah, can you imagine what it would be like to have to change everything? We get species names and genus names changed on a regular basis. You imagine you got a huge collection like that, having to go through every time a change has been made. I guess they don't do it. Oh no. Oh no, guys. I'm gonna try to contact them and see if we can see what's going on and see if we can get them back. Just hang tight, please. Hang tight. All right, I'm going to hang on here just for a little while because I'm imagining they're trying to get back on. So we're just going to hang for a little while. Oh, hey. Well, I'm glad that we had in the chat, got people from the Misfit Reptile and Aquatics show, and I was on their show and had a great time being interviewed. That was a live show on YouTube, and what in the world they're doing here? Let's see. I believe you guys are on Eastern time, and so it's a nice 4 a.m. in the morning where you are. Oh, everybody who's up and is actually hanging out with me for this crazy session. I appreciate you being here for me and keeping me company while we record this. All the will it'll be replayed for everybody who needs to actually get some sleep, which I completely understand. Oh, hey, we have someone from Thailand. Karn, the random is from Thailand. Oh, wonderful. All right, let's see. So, Karn, what time is it there? Thailand. So it would be later in the afternoon. Oh, okay. Yeah, Karn's got it good. Hmm. Well, I'm going to hang around just a little while. If anybody wants to talk on the chat, I'll be here and we can talk. I'm going to stay here, see if Mark is able to come back on. What I'll do is, uh, if they do come back on, is I'll edit out this video and I'll splice it together so anybody seeing it will be able to not have to sit around and have this little chat. Um, so I don't mind sitting around for a little while and seeing if they're able to come back on. Let's see. So Karn's asking if I compare the time zones to Boston, it would be around 12 hours apart. Okay, we have an indication that Mark is trying to get back on. Thank you very much for that notification. All right, so hang tight, everybody. and now my team is laughing at me. At Bill hyped up on coffee with no sleep. This is my Facebook team, and actually, Mark is part of the Chameleon enthusiast admin team and the moderator team, and he works with us, and so my moderator team on the Chameleon enthusiast is laughing at me because they know that I generally am an early. I get to bed pretty early and I wake up early, but I don't do well late at night, and so they're having a grand old time because they can recognize me trying to hang on. Oh, hey, Mark's back. Hello.
Hi. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Apparently, the internet just completely crapped out. So.
Wow, that's the way the internet works.
Daniel's. It's Rarest. I'll show it to you.
Oh.
Be able to see why it's not Rarest. So, it's Rarest always has.
Well, is that?
Let's see how long?
Yeah, that is because the tail is so long.
No, a distinguisher of Superciliaris clade.
Yes. It's a little bit challenging, but we're going to hang on. We're going to work through it.
Yeah. So It was.
Try to move it out there.
Yeah.
I can see I have internet here for my like normal internet.
Yeah.
Mobile data.
I would also have mobile data, but because I have a German phone, I don't want to use my German mobile roaming data because I think they might get angry.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. Are we back?
We can hear the audio. The video is. Oh, there we go. We're back.
Okay. Okay. So let's go back. Let's see if the stream does continue and you can keep seeing us, which it seems good so far.
Yeah, it's looking good.
We'll come back to this guy. So, you'll see along the dorsum.
Yeah.
He's flat, right?
Okay.
The distinguishing feature of Superciliaris and Teresieni is that they have a very strong ridge along the middle of the dorsum, immediately distinguishable from all of the other Brachysia.
Okay.
So this is definitely a Brachysia, but it's certainly not Superciliaris as it's currently identified.
Okay.
So now the question is, what is it? Well, step one, what does the label say? The label says it's from Madagascar. Super helpful. Extremely useful.
At least it doesn't say South Africa.
It was collected in 1884. And there is other information. Do you know what that says down the bottom there?
Yep.
So with Brachysia, the identification is always based on, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, super. So I think this is probably something like Brachysia grivoti or Stumpy, but we do need to look at the actual identification stuff. So we need to know how many dorsolateral spines does it have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It has 10 dorsolateral spines. It kind of has a dorsal, a tail shield. Yeah. 10, so that has 12. Grivoti would have 9 to 10. Stumpy would have 9 to 10. How do you tell apart Stumpy and Grivoti? Stumpy has a rounded supraocular cone. Does it? Rounded supraocular cone. I would say this has a potentially rounded supraocular cone. So I think this is probably Brachysia stumpy. Yeah.
All right, we're watching science.
That's where we're going to land. That's where we're going to land. So that's often how it winds up being. We're always, it often is quite a tentative identification. But, scissors? No. Keep ripping it by hand. So, Brachysia. So this is one of the very few Brachysia we actually have in the collection. We got a shipment of specimens in the late 1880s or 1890s, right? From, who was it, Voitskov? Who sent them? Or Paraka?
Oh, the French guy.
There was a guy who lived in Mauritius who sent us a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
I can't remember what his name was.
No.
We have to look at one of the jars that has another thing on it. But yes. So we're going to say CFC.
Yeah, so many of these specimens, like if it just says Madagascar, it's because someone went and collected and sold them, the specimens, and you didn't have any more data than Madagascar because they didn't write down all the data that we like to write down nowadays.
Mm.
So it's more like, oh, look at this. This is weird.
Yeah. And we used to finance from that.
Yeah.
So it was a profitable business back in the day.
Okay.
So Archesia we will keep separate for now. I'm also going to put the Repelians in their own jar, in their own box. I think this one is currently not. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something about carcinogens in some of the fluids.
Yes.
What's the nature of the danger of that?
So apparently, a lot of people are worried about formalin, formaldehyde, because it is, in theory, carcinogenic, and it's not very nice to have on your hands. But a lot of museum workers who work in these collections surrounded by weird fumes from various different fluids for decades live well into their 80s, 90s, even with terrible habits. So it's not something that I'm particularly worried about. It doesn't seem to affect the longevity of museum workers on the whole.
So if you're just going around in here, there's a lot of ventilation. So that we have had tests going through the collection, so like to test the air, and there's no danger in being in here. So what you don't want to do is stand on top of a big tank of formaldehyde and then just breathe it in. That's the danger.
Okay.
But so when we do big, so we have a leatherback turtle in the freezer we need to fix at some point. But that we will put on masks when we're doing all the fixation. When we do that, we have a breathing system thing when we have the large tank. So our fish colleagues, they have big fish as well. They put in tanks. So in the basement we have like 3 2,500 liters tanks with alcohol, and all those have been in formaldehyde before they go in there.
Okay.
We have like Madagascar shark and 1,000-pound Madagascar shark that has been fixed.
Okay.
Dan, do you want me to grab the Rampholion that are over there, the new ones, and already sort them in here? Because I think we actually might run out of space in the Rampholion box.
We probably need another one.
Yeah, we probably should have a second one.
Those have not been identified.
Oh, those haven't been identified yet.
Yeah, those are the last part.
Okay.
Now, Mark, say with the Jacksoni, we know that there's so much variation within Jacksoni. Would, if you had a bunch of those, would somebody trying to sort through and do taxonomical work on that have to just get your entire collection of Jacksoni, put them all out on a line and figure out which one is which?
Yeah, so the thing about the Jacksoni complex is that there's a lot of geographical variation in it, and that means that you can often identify things pretty close to species level just by knowing the locality. So if you have locality data, you don't have to go through all of that work.
Okay.
That's if you trust the locality data, which you can for the most part, except when in these rare cases where we have a thing that says it's from Madagascar, but it's actually definitely from Eastern Africa. But yes, for the most part, you can trust them. Actually, the more precise they are, usually the more you can trust the data. And that would be the first thing that you would probably do, is sort them by geographically. And then you would start looking at the morphology. But yeah, in theory, you would want to pull out all of them. Yeah.
Okay.
And so Daniel had just pulled off the shelf these two little chaps here. These are identified as Chameleonazutus.
Okay.
Columnazutum complex. Now,
Oh boy.
should know that the
That's a fun one.
complex is a mess. So, what are these? In fact, I've looked at one of these before, and we can do some very fast identification on some things because, well, this one's a lot harder. But the other one, I'll pull out the other one. That's easier. This one has occipital lobes. So here we go. Columnazutus or Chameleonazutum is how it's identified. You see it has that floppy nose at the front. That's obviously indicative that it is indeed a member of that complex. But it has occipital lobes at the back of the head. So you can lift these flaps up at the back. And the identifying feature of the entire Chameleon-nasudum, Columba-nasudum complex is that they don't have occipital lobes. Instead, that makes it a member of the Columba-Butgeri linotum complex. And very likely, based on the stripes on the tail and the dorsal spines, this is very likely to be real Butgeri. Also, this is another one of those specimens that was sent in the 80s. I think,
1880s.
yeah, in the 1880s, sorry, yes. I clarified the century. I think it was by Voitskov. And they are very likely to be from Nosy Bay. And Nosy Bay only has one species of this complex, which is Columba butgeri. So this is very probably Columba butgeri. There is another feature about the arms in whether it's linotum or butgeri. Of course, there are like 8 other species in that complex now that we've worked on it, but we would have to look at the heterogeneity of the scales on the arms and legs. I don't have the paper in front of me, and it came out long after the Old Testament here, so I'll have to go back through it. But that's very probably going to be Columba butgeri. I'm putting these ones to the side because we need to relabel them completely.
Daniel, we have a question. How many gallons or liters of formaldehyde is needed for that leatherback turtle?
That's a good question.
Many.
So because when I have like big stuff, I rarely do that big stuff. So I usually go to my fish colleague and he knows what to buy. But it's like it should be some 100 of liters. So I'm not very good at the gallon.
That's okay. We can do liters.
By 4 is
Divide by 4,
okay, gallons.
Yeah, then it's like, I don't know, 100 gallon, 200 gallon maybe. But it's only 10%, so it's not that strong. So we usually buy it already mixed, so we don't have to stand and buy and mix it everything before we do everything. So. And we can also buy all the alcohol we buy mixed nowadays. That's really nice. You don't have to. In the old days, they bought 96% alcohol, and then they was filling up with water to make the right concentration. Now we can just buy it 70%. So that's made it a lot easier. Yeah. And then again, when you finished the hold, you wash it out, and then we get it picked up all the old formaldehyde. When we usually use the same formaldehyde for some specimens to fixate them, and then we clean out everything, and then you send all the formaldehyde leftovers to a company that takes care of chemical waste.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that leatherback is actually long-term probably going to be stored in glycerol.
Yeah.
Because glycerol it's going to go on display, and it's going to be a very impressive specimen. And glycerol is a nice, stable fluid, much more safe for large areas with visitors than a very large vat of extremely flammable ethanol. So
okay. Yes.
that's the plan. Question about these specimens. They also are not inventoried yet, right?
No,
so they
are. Yeah. Well, they need to give them a new number.
Exactly.
They're on the list.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Good. Okay, so do we have wood dividers that we can throw between these?
Yeah, so are these different species?
These are all different species. This is another different species. So we need a second tray, and we need some wood dividers. So it's a shame that the signal isn't working very well, because I would love to show you the shelf that we have that is just entirely made of mellery. I don't know how many specimens we have now, but it's maybe 30, 40 mellery specimens about now. That's pretty impressive.
So if you had samples of Furcifer pardalis, panther chameleon, from all the different locales, would they all look the same to you?
In ethanol, yes, they all look exactly the same. Okay. Yeah, it's a sad fact. Yeah, you can maybe distinguish the ones that differ very slightly by color, but for the most part, yeah, they look very, very similar. Spectrum comes before Spinosus. This one is Uluguruensis, which comes at the very end, and Temporalis.
Which you want?
Yes, Temporalis.
Do you want to collect more of these? We might as well just give them more.
There will be more, yes, and we also have a whole bunch of Spectrum that have been labeled now.
Okay, then we
I
can...
think, yeah. So let's give space for Spectrum, and we can put Spinosus at the front here, and I think that'll be fine for now. The new trays are somewhat excellent. Oof. Oh. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can do it slightly diagonal.
Yeah.
So how big of a job is this ahead of you?
I would say several lifetimes.
Okay.
That's so the nature of this work. There have been a lot of different curators who have taken care of this collection over time. True of all natural history collections, really. And that basically means that you go through these different phases of expertise. So my expertise is Madagascar. We're going to increase the collection of specimens from Madagascar, but maybe we won't get as many from South and Central America. Whereas in the past, we might have had someone who worked exclusively in South and Central America. So we sort of grow little pieces, and everybody leaves a legacy behind. So I hope that my legacy will be that we substantially increase the size of the collection, but also have it sorted according to something like a reasonable taxonomy. A lot of the current organization in the collection is based on really old school stuff. Boulanger's catalogs from the 1880s. And the result of that is that we have some very silly arrangements that have nothing to do with evolution or biology, but are just based on an old catalog and the numbering that was used for that catalog. So in the frogs especially, we have a huge project ahead of us, resorting everything and fixing all of the family assignments as well as the genera and everything.
And so when you're talking about expanding the collection, what do you target? Do you want to have one of everything?
No, I don't think that we can take it as a Pokemon task, because it's a huge task, obviously, to try to collect one of everything or even come close. And many things only exist as a single specimen in one museum in the world. But we do want to have a fair representation. We do have a fantastic representation of species. I think we have more than half of all reptile species.
Yeah,
quite a lot more than half of all reptile species, actually.
I think in herbs general, I think it's 30% of all species.
Yeah, 30% of all amphibians plus reptiles. Yeah. So we have a very good representation on the whole of species. But yeah, it would be a little bit crazy for us to try to really go after the full scope of everything.
So and also the museum also works in different areas. So we have a strong collection policy in Denmark. So we like to keep the Danish, all the Danish animals, organisms, a good series of those, and that also goes for the herbs as well. We don't have many herbs here in Denmark, but we have some. And then, of course, we have interest in Tanzania. We have a field station in Tanzania in the Udzungwa Mountains. So there's a big research contribution down there. Collect a lot of stuff from Tanzania in collaboration with the local people in Tanzania as well. And then it's up to who comes here. So Mark works on Madagascar, and he will probably continue doing that. So that's really cool, and we can expand the collection in that area. And then maybe in 50 years, when there's a new curator, that person can expand what they want to do in that area. So yeah, so that it really depends on the people here, actually, and the collaborations we have on a university and museum level.
When you expand something, are you sending scientists out and telling them, please collect this certain thing, or are you waiting for the zoos to get them? How do you purposefully expand?
We go out and do collections, or we solicit
Okay.
people to do collections for us, or we'd say, oh, you're planning to do an expedition, would you please deposit your specimens with us? That's
Okay.
basically the very simple level of how we try to get people to come and deposit their specimens here.
So, like, you going to Madagascar is a business expense next?
Unfortunately, it doesn't work quite like that, but along the line, yeah, it is work travel. Yeah.
Okay.
It's certainly not holiday.
I mean, does this mean that you will be going back to Madagascar to do some collection of specimens?
Yes, certainly. If not, I certainly won't be going this year because we have a very fresh baby, so I'm kind of tied here for now. But I will be planning to go back next year. I'm also hoping to go to Tanzania next year, so I'm trying to create quite an active collection program in mostly places that actually do have chameleons, although the chameleons for me are not the main target for a lot of my research.
Yeah, I know it hurts to hear that, but okay.
Well, I am still very actively working on it. I've just been discussing also, we might have a new species of Burkisia that we're trying to describe soon. There is some more stuff that's in the works as well. So it's not that it's completely the website. I'm also doing a little bit less taxonomy and a little bit more kind of evolutionary biology at the moment, or going in that direction at the moment, but trying to keep the taxonomy alive as well.
Okay.
So I would say that we can. How are we doing in terms of the Brevicorn? Are probably all off now.
Yeah, it should be. I've been scouring.
Yeah.
So now next, maybe we should take him alphabetically.
But is it? Do we only have one Brevicorn? Is that right? Just that one?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because these are not Brevicorn.
Oh, we should. Oh, Brevicorn. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No,
okay.
no, not here. Here we are.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's pull this off then, because I see one specimen in there that's definitely in the wrong place. So this is Namaquensis, the weirdest of the Camellia species.
Oh.
It's not exactly a lot to look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Camellia namaquensis, it's actually a bit surprising that it's currently still in Camellia, but
Yes.
It's a very, very unusual species, of course.
Yes.
But it will go back to the main Chameleons. Gotta get this label off. Ding. Ow. Oh, man.
I might have some office that needs a number.
Okay.
So that might be one.
Okay.
How often
So
do you have to replace specimens?
What do you mean, replace specimens?
As in, do they ever? They don't. They apparently they're very preserved, but is there any study that damages them?
Yeah, so there are destructive methods that can be done if you have material that is of the right kind, and you have a benevolent collections manager or curator who says, okay. For the most part, we try not to destroy anything, but sometimes somebody needs to come in and say, oh, I want to turn this entire specimen transparent, for instance. If you wanted to go and look at the skeleton with some of the old school methods, you would have to either skeletonize by taking off all the flesh, or you can do this method called diaphanization, or clearing and staining. And that, of course, comes at the cost of the specimen that you're looking at. So you do have to make some pretty dramatic changes there. But we would not then necessarily want to replace the specimen. It just is a cost of a specimen, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's also why it's nice to have the zoo specimens, because that's so if you could use a zoo specimen instead of a wild-caught one, then we will do that. So that's also. We also have a few left over here with no data at all. So they're just like chameleons, maybe from a study collection or something like that. But they're always nice to have. So they're not inventoried yet. So these can be used to whatever. if you want to make a skeleton, if you want to, I don't know, squeeze it or something like that. I don't know what what you could think of.
Kinds of things.
Like to have some.
Yeah. Okay, so this is all Pumelos.
Well,
How
how often does study deal with the internal organs? I mean, you like the sex organs that you look at with your the Nasutum group.
Yeah. So those
Is that
are
destructive?
for the most part, they have to be done in the field, or when you're
Okay.
freshly killing the animals. There are methods to do it in the. There will be one more species that will come in there. For the most part, they do have to be done when you're preparing the specimen. You can do some of them afterward, and then you got it. But that is more destructive. We try not to do that very much. It kind of depends sometimes. If it's worth it, then we would do it. If it's not worth it, then we wouldn't. And we always have to assess, like, what's the benefit of the project? What can it do for us? What are the potential gains and potential costs of doing this kind of destructive sampling? And whenever possible, especially with animals that are, these are beautiful. They have so much data and collected in the field. They're photographed and whatever. Then we don't want to destroy them if we can possibly avoid it. But on the other hand, as you say, the genitals can be really important for chameleon identification. So it does sometimes make sense to do those kinds of things. But again, it's a weighted decision.
Okay. And who has access to these specimens?
The general public, if they have a good reason. Basically.
Oh, really?
So if you need to come and see the collection for something, you can contact us and arrange to visit. And I guess there are also ways to get public tours, right? But
yeah, so I do a lot of tours over the years, but it's mostly for like institutions, so the higher education students. So there may be university students or something like that, but it's mostly those kind of people. But yeah, we do sometimes have some tours. I think I have like 30 or 50 tours a year, depending on on how active a year it is. But it can also be important people that needs to see the collection to donate money for a project or something.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, if the Queen of Denmark happens to want to see some dead reptiles, then
sure.
You guys are there. You're there for her.
Yeah. So they did. So also one thing that is very important to us. It is the Danish Collection. So this is paid by Danish taxpayer money.
It's the National Museum.
So but it's not open, so people can just go in. You have to go through us. It's closed and everything, but But we don't want to completely seal up everything. So it's like Fort Knox or something like that, because it is to use that we use this stuff also for outreach, and we use it for exhibitions and stuff like that. So, and then of course we wait which one we will use. So of those with no data, that we can send those off. So if we have a person that's doing outreach at the, we have a lot of outreach people at the museum. They can come and borrow a chameleon. Then we'll choose one of them, the ones we have without data, and then you can take this one and then you can show it around. And if you drop it, then it's not the end of the world. I think that's very important. And then, of course, the most important part of the museum is that we are the big network, as Mark also mentioned earlier, that we are like a library. You could come in and look at them, and you could come from wherever in the world, as long as you have a project that that's scientific in some way. You can come and have a look.
Okay.
Yeah. And we do have a lot of collaborators also in Denmark. We have the Sea Snake collection is actually a very big one as well. And we have a scientist who works at another institute that still collects stuff, and he comes and donates it to us. And then he is allowed to come here as much as he's like to go in and have a look at all the sea snakes. So that kind of collaboration is also very important for the museum.
So what is the most common use for the people coming in to take a look at these specimens? What are they trying to do?
Yeah, well, nowadays DNA is also very important. So if you talk about destructive sampling, so many people want a small sample, especially from the older stuff that has never been used for DNA. So that's a smaller destructive sampling where we go in and take a small muscle sample from the specimen or something like that. So that's very, very what's it called, popular nowadays with the DNA,
Okay.
but also X-rays, and people are asking for CT scans now. We don't have a micro CT here at the museum yet. I don't know if we will ever get it maybe at some point. But then there's a lot of collaborators that want to come and CT scan a lot of stuff. And photos is a very common one. So people asking for photos of specimens. So we can just take the photos and send them. And sometimes we even send the specimens. So we can actually send these guys with mail.
Okay.
So that we also do that to other institutes. So we normally we will only send to another official institute somewhere else. But we sent a lot of frogs recently, and they just described the new species based on our frogs. Smaller tree frogs from the sub-Saharan Africa.
And then do you need to get CITES paperwork?
No, so what the museum here has a CITES permission, so to say. So we have a CITES number, so we can just add that, and as long as the other institute also have a CITES registration number, then we can just send it by mail. And then the whole thing within the EU, you can send stuff around as you like, as long as you're sending from institute to institute. So the only ones that are a bit hard to do it is the United States. They have a lot of extra rules, so they don't use that system. That's really annoying. So they do have the system sent out to us, but we have to go through all the paperwork when we send it to the States.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a bit annoying, but that's how it is.
Okay.
Yeah, what else we can? Yeah.
We got a question as to, can we take tissues and clone things?
Cloning doesn't work. Yeah.
Cloning doesn't work yet, Mark says. Yeah, it all depends on what you can get. So it's so formaldehyde can be an issue with DNA because it actually encapsulates DNA. But there's been a lot of leaps forward in that regard. Actually, here in Denmark, we have an ancient DNA institute that actually have managed to get a lot of nice DNA out of even formaldehyde specimens. But it's also it's not every time you know how much DNA you can get. So yeah, I'm not a DNA expert, but there's you can ask different questions regarding how much material you have or how much DNA there's actually available. So it's very. I don't think you can make a full genome. I'm not sure with
It's very. I mean, it can be done, but it's very expensive and time-consuming, and it really has to be worth it.
Yeah.
So if you want to get a full genome of a dodo, that would be possible. But if you wanted to get a full just one of these chameleons, it would be thousands of euros or dollars, and not really worth it.
Okay.
You want me to find them first?
So yeah, I was just going through. So far we have Cameleo, and I just took this Triceras thing out from the middle that was here.
Yeah.
So it will go all the way Chameleon, and then some of these are Triceras, right?
Yeah, no, these are
taking the Triceras out already.
Yeah, this is only Madagascar stuff.
Oh, this is Coloma. Okay, and Coloma and first.
Yes.
Okay, so let's pull this out.
Yeah. I have
And to the person asking about the preservation chemicals, at the beginning we had a real long discussion about the different types. And so go ahead and check out the replay for the answer to your question.
So here's some material from Madagascar. This is a nice Furcifer Austelet's chameleon.
Okay.
You can see collected in 1915. And then we have here Furcifer lateralis, which people might know is now 3 different species. We're going to leave it as lateralis for now, especially because none of these have locality data. None of them have locality
Which
data.
tree is that? Is that lateralis
Lateralis,
Major and viridis?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So these are all from the pet trade. And then we have some things that people may be familiar with here. Any idea what that is?
Varicosis?
Nope.
Okay. Let me
Try again.
Yeah, let me oh, it's looking well, okay. They got spines on the back. It's hard to see what the nostril is.
Maybe
Is
I'll
that
pull it out.
Pardalis?
It is Pardalis, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, this is like a totally different mindset than
Yeah.
what we are used to.
LMNO. Yes, these are first. Yes, first. All first. Yes. No points for guessing what this is.
That's a big, I would say Parsenite just because of the size of the. Oh, now I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a Parsenite. This one apparently might be. Oh, it's probably from the pet trade. But yes, we have two Parsenite here. Yes, Coloma Parsenite. So those will also. We have here these Nasudum that are actually not Nasudum. They're also Coloma.
Okay.
So they will eventually go in the same thing, but these ones need to get labels. Okay, cool. What have we got here? Brevicorn, yes. That is Brevicorn. That is also maybe Brevicorn. Oh, this one's got really nice data.
Yes.
Okay, that's also definitely Brevicorn. And this one is probably. This one's Maita.
Now, Mark, if you
Typical.
had a choice as to how to expand, what would you go for first?
I want to get a decent collection of Malagasy things just because it's my area of expertise, and our collection is mostly based on things from the pet trade, and we don't have any really nice locality data. So my first step would be trying to get a really nice representative collection of Malagasy things. After that, I would try to refresh some of our collections from Southeast Asia and Eastern Africa, just because those are the main places that I would really like to work. I'd love to go to New Guinea, and I think adding some things from New Guinea would be really, really cool.
Now, I know you've done a lot of work with the Malthae, Brevicorn, Crypticum,
Yeah.
and so do you already have specimens of those well represented?
No, so this is our entire collection of Brevicorn complex specimens are these four.
Okay.
And of them, I would say probably Brevicorn. This is probably a Brevicorn. This is almost certainly a Maita. And this one here is probably a Brevicorn. So I say this one's a Maita because it has that elongation at the back of the head that is so typical of the Maita complex. So you'll see it has quite a long, drippy, got a pretty long rostral appendage, and you see
Okay.
the back of the head is really long, with very long occipital lobes. So in theory, this could still be a Brevicorn, but I lean toward putting it into Maita. I would need to do some scale counts to get more certain of that, but yeah, right now it's going to stay in the Brevicorn complex together with everything else, and then when I have time, I'll go through and actually make sure that everything is really nicely identified.
Now, is Cuculata just a totally different beast?
Yeah, they look really, really different. Yeah.
So they're not part of the Brevicorn complex at all?
They are from the Brevicorn complex, but they don't really enter into it because I would also say Hillenusi and Taratanenza are also members of the Brevicorn complex. But I really wouldn't put too much emphasis on them just because they're pretty they're very
obvious.
You can pretty easily identify them.
Yeah. Okay.
It should be said that the Brevicorn complex was kind of the original revision of them that corrected Crypticum and the other species is quite difficult to use. And in particular, there are some probably valid old names that aren't currently assigned. So the entire actually need revised fully. But the problem has always been that we didn't really have enough material. So we need to have a better collection of from different locations, good genetic representation. And at the moment, that sampling hasn't been done. So that would be a really interesting field trip, traveling across Madagascar and going to these different places and sampling the specimens. But the problem currently with working in Madagascar in that way is that every time you go into a new region, you have to get paperwork for that specific region. And the regions are relatively finely divided. So you wind up having to you spend more time in offices than you do in the field, which is not really cool. So that's how we typically are right now, or that's the reason we're typically always going to a single location and then dealing with the paperwork at that location.
Okay.
So we need to give this the Furcifer label.
We can get nice new ones later.
Yeah, sure. Sure. So at the moment we only have 3 pieces of Furcifer, it looks like.
Yeah,
Unless I'm mistaken.
might be some more.
Yeah. And then just 3 species, or four species probably of Columba as well. So pretty small representation of these chameleons that actually make up about half of all species of chameleons.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay. Okay.
Oh, here's more.
More Furcifer, yay! Okay, that's Ustiletti. And more Ustiletti.
And one fun.
And more Ustiletti. Okay. Wait, I'll put those over here. Okay, so Ustiletti's probably going to have to come out to another tray.
Yeah. And also, you collect more stuff.
Yeah. Do you guys still have connection, or is there...
Yep, we got connection.
Weirdly, it's frozen on my screen, so are you, Bill, but
okay.
when I move my mouse, it shows that I'm actually on the screen, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we've been seeing you move.
That's good. That's very, very helpful and important. Okay. So we just pulled out 3 additional Ustiletti that are in here. So there's a big debate, for those who don't know, about what is the largest chameleon in the world. Because Mallory is, of course, enormous. But then in Madagascar, we have these 2 competing beasts. We have, on the one hand, Furcifer ustiletti, which is a very long chameleon, but not very heavy. And then we have Columba parsoni, which is a very heavy chameleon that's not as long as ustilets. And so, depending on how you define largest, we have probably both of the largest species of chameleon are found in Madagascar. They are probably those 2. But if you define it by the length, then it would be ustiletti. And if you define it by the weight, it would definitely be parsoni.
Okay.
And I found ustiletti in the wild that were the size of a house cat, like really, really big chameleons. So, and they weren't even close to the record holder. So the record holder is insane. If we just pull out what the Glavenvensis guide here says on the largest specimen, total length was almost 700 millimeters. That's over 2 feet.
That's a healthy chameleon.
That is a very big chameleon. Yeah, so they would be alphabetically after these 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just put them into Pardalis. L-O-O-P. Yeah.
Alphabet.
Alphabet, yeah. At least the Danish alphabet is similar to the English one.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a question. What is the rarest chameleon in Madagascar?
Rarest chameleon in Madagascar. We tried very hard to find Columba jeji, and I don't know if it's been seen since the original description, actually. So that would be one of them. There's also what's it called? from the Rhinoceros complex that we just revalidated a couple years ago. What's it called? I can't remember right now. Bear with me. I'll be right back. I'm just going to go get another book.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll be back in a second.
Some more Pardalis here. That's a big
Oh,
one.
good. And
Yeah,
what
yeah.
locale data is on that? Oh, that's the Parsony.
Yeah, it's Poison, yeah. It's from Madagascar.
Oh,
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a shame because it's really it happens a lot, especially from the very old collections that they didn't really bother to write down everything. It wasn't that important. It was like they just wanted the animal to show it. They didn't think about the importance of locality data, but but this one is actually quite cool. This is from this actually have nice data on them from Madagascar. This is Pardalis as well.
Oh, great.
And then it was like then Denmark had like 3 missions called Galatia Missions. I never know if you never heard of those, but so the first one was in the 1840s, and then they redid them again in the 1950s, where they mainly they went for deep sea exploration. So they were actually the first ones to find life in very deep sea areas, like thousands of feet underwater. But they also went on land missions, and then they collected stuff, and they also actually have very nice data on them. And then we did a Galatia 3 mission like 15 years ago, but it was more for show than for anything else. So
okay.
So to answer your question, the rarest chameleon in Madagascar is probably Furcifer monoceros, which we revalidated now 3 or 4 years ago, and it's only known from Specimen, which is if you Google Furcifer monoceros, you'll see it. It's very weird. It has a gigantic rostral appendage. I'll just try and put it in front of the screen so you have a general idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I say, it's only known from a single specimen, and that specimen comes from the vicinity of Majanga. And as far as we know, so there's been another expedition recently going looking for it, couldn't find it. The answer is probably that it's extinct because it lived in these bush forests that are down in the coastal region that are largely gone. This chameleon has been skinned.
you might have to skip somewhere.
Yeah. That's delightful.
Got a little destructive things going on there.
Mounted in a terrarium somewhere.
Mounted in a terrarium somewhere. Okay.
Like a bigger terrarium. I'm not quite sure what this was. A 61. I found another Parsony.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, big one. Very nice. Excellent. Okay, so where are the Parsonies for now? We have space for it up there?
We do, but if you collect more specimens, we will have a problem.
I will only rarely collect Parsoni because they're so...
And it is.
In general, I don't like to collect big chameleons if I can avoid it. I would maybe take one, but they're just so difficult to transport, and it's really hard killing a very large animal like that. So I really try to avoid it.
Okay.
Same is true with boas and any of the really lizards. Not very nice. It's sometimes quite difficult work doing these collecting trips.
Yeah, I imagine I would have a trouble doing that.
Yeah. You have to kind of get used to it at some point, but it's very unpleasant. So are there any more of these Furcifer?
I think I found all the Furcifers now.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I know it ruins the alphabet, but I think I would put the Furcifers next to the Columnas.
Sure.
Just because they're likely to expand together, and they are actually a single clade in our evolutionary analyses, so it also makes sense.
It's fine because it's a relatively small collection, so we should be able to.
Yeah.
not like you're gonna get lost somewhere.
Exactly.
And then it's the Chameleons thing, I guess.
Yeah. What's the destiny of these guys here?
These are the ones without data on anything.
They still have nothing. Okay, so they will stay.
Yeah. So maybe we actually want to. I will probably move the shelter a bit around, and then we can have some more shelving down here for chameleons.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. But for now, we can just.
Yeah. So next is Chameleon.
Yeah.
And.
Africanus.
Okay. And the other ones will go at the very end, right? The Repelian will go at the very bottom. Kinyongia will also go after them, right? Yes. So I'll put the Kinyongia. This is also a Chameleon.
Okay.
That's Namaquensis. So put this here. Oh yeah, sure.
Mark, what is the purpose for these chameleons that have bones that are connected only by fleshy protuberant, like Melori, and I think Bale bicornutus, or they have these little horns that are completely useless, or like in Melori is they've got a little horn, but it's attached by flesh.
Yeah, so we think that all of those ornaments that they've got are involved in sexual signaling of some kind. Probably, so it can only really be two kinds of sexual communication. It's either intersexual or intrasexual, so males talking to females or males talking to males. The precise purpose of it is only really understandable if you watch the behavior of the animals, which in many cases we simply haven't done. So in some ways it's low-hanging fruit. You just have to do some observation studies and figure out what exactly are they using those structures for. But yeah, we think that they're probably involved in some kind of sexual signaling between different individuals. Maybe it's indicating that they are able to survive while looking so silly. I don't know. It's so yeah. In general, when you have these kinds of ornaments, and of course chameleons are crazy for ornaments, they can serve one of a few different purposes. Sexual signaling is one of them. There's also the possibility that they play a role in camouflage, that they can break up the outline of the animal. But when it comes to very small ornaments like that, it's quite unlikely that it's somehow involved in camouflage or something. It's more likely that it's a subtle sexual signal.
Okay. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
In species such as minor, lateralis, labordi, and even callipratus, the females, when they are gravid, become brightly colored.
Yeah.
What in the world of a use would they need to be brightly colored just to say I'm gravid, when a open mouth and I'm going to bite the heck out of you will do the job?
It's probably males from afar to stay away, so that because female chameleons get harassed quite strongly by males. They have quite a lot of coercive mating, which is a nice way of saying that the males essentially force the females to mate with them. And the more energy that can be saved on either part, by the male and the female, by the female telling the male to back off, the better. So if she's able to signal, let's say over 10 meters, for the male to stay away and not bother trying to mate with her, and that signal gets interpreted correctly by the male, then they can both avoid wasting the energy that is then beneficial for their survivorship, for the offspring. So that would be my main guess. It could also just be advertising to the nearest bird that I'm tasty, I'm extra tasty, and therefore come have a snack. But that wouldn't be a very good evolutionary strategy.
So this is actually an opposite problem we have. So sometimes they split species, but also sometimes they actually fuse them together again.
Yes, right.
This is a really nice example of that.
So this is Chameleon basiliscus, which doesn't exist anymore. It's a synonym. of Cameleo africanus.
Same with this one.
And I'm just going to pull out, what does Tilbury have to say on the matter?
This one should also be Africanus nowadays.
Yeah.
Calcaratus.
Okay. Yes. Oops. Yeah. So Africanus. We have, as synonyms of Cameleo africanus, there is Africanus, Mexicanus.
That's an interesting
Apparently
one.
Laurent thought that there was a species of chameleon that lived in Mexico.
Okay.
Candidus, Aegyptus, Calcaratus, Basiliscus, and Africanus africanus. So, you are correct. These are synonyms.
Yes.
So the question is, are they recognized as subspecies by Tilbury? I doubt it. Yeah. No. So
That's really nice.
they will all stay as Africanus.
That was
yeah.
the one identified by you.
Oh yeah, good.
So from Nigeria.
Yes.
61.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Yeah. Probably need more than one tray.
Yeah, it looks like that.
And this one is also.
Exactly. So we can actually change the label there to just say Africanus.
Yes.
Yeah. Super. So we are making progress.
And then I guess it's Cameleo, but that's the other problem. The opposite problem.
What is They do need to be split into many species. Now I think I would leave them together because it's going to be such a huge task to re-identify all of them.
Oh, you want to show me?
Yeah.
This is a good guys.
Is that also a synonym?
It's really often that all the ones that are called double names, so like Cameleo, or all the mammals and all the birds, they will have been called guys back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we rarely hear about Xylanicus, the chameleon from India.
That's awesome. Yes. Yeah, we have
really?
Yeah. I can pull one out.
Thing.
Let me just pull one out.
Okay.
So this, unfortunately, is from a zoo. But we do have a specimen of, or we have 3 specimens of Cameleo xylanicus. Always so drippy, but yeah, there you go.
Oh, look at that. It's actually
So they
interesting that Instagram has, I've seen more of these on Instagram. Just because people in India, I mean, Instagram is huge in India, and so there's a lot of people posting Xylanicus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not commonly seen, obviously. So getting any animals, any material out of India now is extremely difficult. So they're not commonly brought into European collections anymore. And in any case, so this one's from the zoo, for instance. I'll just check if the other 2 have are wild.
Why are things difficult to get out of India?
Permitting reasons. They've just made it very difficult, which is their right. So a lot of countries have made it quite difficult to for other countries to export, because there's a long history of exploitative research in various different countries, especially associated with colonialism. So this collection has a very strong colonial history, which always has to be acknowledged. We have, as Daniel mentioned before, we have things from the Caribbean, from islands that used to belong to Denmark that now belong to the U.S., but that are, in essence, their own. The U.S. Virgin Islands are formerly Danish in possession, but of course that's also a colonial legacy. And the material from there is also part of that history. So. A lot of countries have started to legislate very strongly to prevent that kind of stuff happening again. which makes a lot of sense. And it does have the unfortunate consequence that it's often difficult to get new material from those countries. But through collaborations, it often still is possible. And sometimes we do what are called permanent loans. So rather than saying, okay, we're going to take this material from this country permanently, instead we say, okay, this is on a permanent loan. It's still a property of the country that it came from, but it could be returned if they demanded it back. And that kind of helps to alleviate that kind of exploitative structure that used to be so common in a lot of this research. Yeah. So here is one specimen that we do have from apparently collected in the wild in East India. But it also says that it's from the old Hall of Art. So it probably has been in museum collections for a very, very long time. It doesn't have a year of collection. But yes, we do have at least one allegedly wild-caught Zealandicus. And of course, the ones that are from the zoo were also wild-caught, but simply were not, we don't have location from where they came from. They were never bred in the zoo.
Do you happen to have Camaleo-Caloptratus calcarifer?
Good question. I would love to be able to check, but I can't. I can just see. Caloptratus. In general, we don't have any Caloptratus. In fact, I don't see where they are at all right now.
Oh. For those people listening, the veiled chameleon is actually a subspecies. Camaleo-Caloptratus has two subspecies, Caloptratus and Caloptratus calcarifer, if I said that right.
Yeah. So this is a good excuse. I will just be right back. I'm just going to go grab the paper catalog, and then you can see how the paper catalog works.
Okay. So for those of us who just joined us, we are watching Dr. Mark Scherz, who's the curator of herpetology, and he's in the museum, the Natural History Museum of Denmark, and we're looking at the herpetology collection that he is now sorting through the chameleons, and we're seeing what he takes off the shelf. He's got to sort through them and arrange them all. He's new. They just brought him onto the position, and so it's his job to make some sense out of all of this. So. Okay. Right now, he's going to get the paper classification. Has a list of everything that they've got on paper, and they're slowly working to put it into the computer.
So unfortunately, the paper catalog is currently in various different pieces because it's being digitized. So I can't pull out the catalog.
Okay.
Oh, you did. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah. Super. So let's see. We wanted to know Caloptratus. If we have.
I still have a few in my office, but it's
okay.
the ones I need to.
Yeah. Do we have a lot of Calaprotus specimens? Do we have any Calaprotus specimens? I haven't seen them.
Can you Calaprotus?
Cameleo Calaprotus.
Probably not them. I have rearranged them so they are in alphabetical order. So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see them.
No, I don't think we have any.
So apparently we don't have any of the most common species that's in captivity. That's how it flows sometimes. And of course, getting fresh wild material is basically impossible now. So
Yeah, that'll be a challenge.
Yeah. So at some point we may even have some in the freezer. But at least in the collection, it seems that we don't have Calaprotus. Surprisingly.
You know what? Just find a ticket to Yemen and slip it to Mr. Nitchus, and
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah, no, we have plenty of other species from various different parts of Africa, but apparently no Calaprotus.
Oh, okay.
Good to know. A hole in our collection, and one that's easily filled. So just have to ask some German colleagues who breed them as well. It's probably easy to get. How are we? What's the status?
So now I just moved the Delphis. We had 4 trays of the Delphis.
Yeah.
Different subspecies here. And then we have the Carcides.
Okay. And what's happening with these
This
ones?
is Triceras. The rest is Triceras, but I have divided them into species, and there's a lot of different species. So all
Yes.
these are Jacksonies.
Okay.
And then we have this Latera. I think it's Triceras as well.
Yeah.
And then we have
This is
Ovni.
okay.
Yeah, so we need to put those in trays. We have
Yeah.
Johnsoni.
Okay, so we have loads of Triceras.
Yes,
Are these also Triceras up here?
these are Triceras.
Okay.
These are Triceras.
So these
You're
ones
doing
are
good with the 3-horn species.
down here.
Yeah.
And
then we start moving into Triceras.
exactly.
No, the Chiantis first.
Young is.
And then the Triceras are going to go last.
Yeah.
And then we put in the smaller ones, the Vertipodium.
Yeah.
And then
So should we pull all of these onto the table?
yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Are we going to get to see the 3-horn Triceras?
Oh,
We have a lot of those.
we have a lot of them. Yeah. Yeah. So here's a nice example. These are from the zoo again.
Okay, that looks like Xantholophus.
Yeah, you would know these definitely better than I do. So, but we have one in here that has. Is it typical for them to have paired spines on the back? Yeah. Okay. Yes. So yeah, we have quite a few Triceras. We need trays. I have one here. So, Jacksony. They should all be Jacksony, right? So we have 2 whole trays just of Jacksony.
How's the locality data on that?
Some of them are fantastic. Some of them are from the zoo.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
one never knows.
Might even try to divide them in goods.
Ooh, this one really needs some ethanol, huh?
Yeah, but it's sealed, so I need to break it up at some point.
Okay.
And then they have the best sin of all collections, putting the label outside the jar. That's you never do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Can easily, yeah, you can they get lost and then
that's what it is anymore.
so
Yeah, we should definitely move that inside.
I will put it in a new jar at some point, and then I'll put a label that can go in, and then this one will sit outside. But if it gets lost, then it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, we'll start scanning them as well.
Yeah.
So this is Owenny, and this is Laterespinus.
Oh. Could we see the Owenny?
Yeah. Well, not in any more detail than. Is this one also? This is also an Owenny, so this one's actually easier to. Huh? Maybe not. Oh yes. Okay. This one can be pulled out. Where are my tweezers?
We just see so few specimens of that.
Yeah. So this is a really beautiful specimen, actually. It's a bit soft, sometimes happens if you don't have the perfect collection conditions. Sometimes they're a bit soft, but here's the...
Oh, wow. Yeah, look at that tail. And gosh,
got beautiful
very
spine.
nice. Very nice.
Yeah. And you see these silly, very rudimentary the occipital lobes that are just at the top there. One of the useful features in identification of ONE. So beautiful.
This is actually, those two have good data. The rest is zoo.
Okay. So we have 2 Jacksoni that actually have locality data, basically.
Hey.
I have a few more in the office, but
well, 3
Yeah.
if you include the fact that there are 2 specimens in there. Yeah.
Do you know, are all of these, we have 6 3-horned species, are they related, or was that some sort of concurrent evolution?
I don't know off the top of my head. My instinct would be to say they're probably closely related. Some of them, like, it's possible that they've undergone a reversal of the state in some cases, but for the most part, so some of them might have lost their horns, but in all likelihood, they're actually closely related. So these are both ONE.
yes. Then we have the Johnstoney.
Johnstoney,
Oh, yeah.
very good. Okay, and these also both have data.
Yes,
This is from
Where are
Belgian
they from?
Congo.
Congo.
So this one's from Belgian Congo, which is of course now DRC, yeah, Democratic Republic of Congo. And this one is from Ludiro. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Lubero.
Lubero?
That should be in Tanzania.
Tanzania?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it?
Tanzania?
No,
Central Africa, it says here.
Yeah, I know where it is. I have that. I know that Wimpy.
Wimby, okay.
It's from the Central African expedition,
Mm-hmm.
where we have collected much of our African material.
Yeah.
In the.
Okay.
Then we have Vernery here. So
JLW, right at the end, right?
This, I think they will stay like this.
Yeah. Oh, you want to keep them out of alphabet?
Either that, or you can. It's just because there's so many.
Yeah, Johnstoney and then Jacksoni. So what if we do this? Because we're not going to get a lot more of these. Yeah. We'll just do that. There's our J's. And we can do. All right, Vernery is going to go right at the end, of course.
A bit more Vernery here.
W, right? Cool. Oh, more Verneries. Very nice. This one's from Uzunga in Tanzania. This is also from Tanzania, also from the Uzunga Mountains. So the Uzunga Mountains is where the field research station is of the museum. So.
And we have these guys. They should also be Triceras now.
Oh.
This one as well.
Pimply.
This one.
Yes.
Do you happen to have any Fuliborni?
Fulborni, maybe. We will see. We're going to go through all of them now. We'll soon find out.
I've always wondered, because I've always seen them with pictures with very stubby horns, and that's just not like any of the others. And so I'm wondering, is that just because I'm seeing specimens that are young?
Maybe. So they're anyway very weird. I think there are really no good photographs of them either. So, yeah, we probably don't have them. Yes. So here's a very nice, beautiful specimen of Cristatus.
Oh. Uh-huh.
You can see in ethanol the crest becomes somewhat translucent. We have quite a few Cristatus specimens.
Yeah,
and then
we need to really sort.
We really have to redo the alphabet.
Well, here's a loaded question from the viewership. Is there a rare Jacksons that we don't know about?
I would not be the person to ask. I definitely am not very familiar with the taxonomy of Trioceras to begin with. There's always a chance. So because the Eastern Arc Mountains are so good at generating new species, there's always a chance that we simply haven't collected on one of the mountains and don't know about a specific location where there is a new species that's waiting to be discovered. But as far as we know, no. Or, well, I'm not the person to ask, so I wouldn't know. This is Elliotty. So we have Bitaniatus.
More Trioceras species.
Oh yeah, what are these? We'll have to go through everything. Oh, we have Netchesy.
Oh,
So these are ones that I keep down. Montium. We only have a very small specimen of Montium. This is very chaotic now. Okay, so what do we got? Cristatus. C. D.
Hoenli.
Hunali. Ah, yes, Hunali. Okay. This is L-O-T-W. L-O-T-W. Let's see how this goes. We are going to... So, Elliotty. This is starting C, D. Elliotty should be the start of this one. This says Senegalensis on top of it, and then Elliotty on the side. We're going to trust the Elliotty identification. Bitaniatus definitely goes before Cristatus. Zeylanicus is Chameleon. Yeah. Okay, Bitaniatus. C, C, D, E.
And then we of course have Mallory.
And then Mallory.
And then is this Chameleon still?
Yes, this is Chameleos still, I think. No, this should be Trioceras.
And this
Wiedersheimi is Trioceras, right?
That is.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, this will be. This is a Furcifer Vericosus from Madagascar.
And then there's this one.
And Gutsy. Okay, we'll get to Gutsy later. Wiedersheimi goes after Bernary at the end of the alphabet.
Yeah, that one was broken up too.
Oh yes, everything is in a constant state of flux, so you can't ever get too attached to the taxonomy of anything.
Yes.
These are also Bitaniatus.
Let's see.
This is
Well, we have a
Bitaniatus.
question. Is there any Jacksons out there that can change colors like the panther chameleon? And I can answer that and say, well, if you accept a Jackson's chameleon that lays eggs and is called Johnstonii, you can get close.
That's often the way of things.
But no, Jacksons, there are some colorful Jacksons, like Miramontanus is colorful. Of course, the Machacos Hills Jackson's chameleon is very colorful. But when you start asking about getting close to the panther chameleon, there aren't a whole lot of chameleons that can change color, that have the colors of the panther chameleon. But check out the Johnston's chameleon, and that starts to get you the horns and the color.
Yeah, so that was what I was going to say is the color changing capacity of Pardalis is not much greater than any of the other chameleons. It just has a huge range of color morphs over its distribution,
Okay.
Which is of course remarkable, but is not a reflection of its particular ability to change color.
It just starts with a brighter palette.
Or a more varied palette, I would say.
Okay.
You know, if you you drive for 20 kilometers, sometimes you wind up with a completely different color form, which you didn't expect to see. So yeah, it can be quite amazing to go from place to place across northern Madagascar and see the different color forms.
And as you're doing that, you don't cross any geographical barrier that would keep them from mingling?
Well, rivers are, of course, always geographical barriers, and rivers are often kind of in the way for chameleons, but not that much in the way, because you can always move from branch to branch across a river. So they pose something of a barrier, but not a super strong one. So I guess that, I don't know if that answers your question. So basically,
well, yeah,
there are no super obvious geological barriers or anything that is really in the way that would make it clear that those should be the reason that there are color separations between them. So we don't really know what the cause is for the different color morphs, but it is amazing that they fall so close to an actual spectrum, like a, a normal color space. It seems like it can't possibly be a coincidence that they're so close to a natural color space. Okay, so this is N E, and then we'll have one here that has, here is our Triceras serrata, of which we have a single specimen.
Okay.
Monty. See. L, so L M N S O N O L M N O S is always an alphabet question. O S and then T. That would be Temple. Okay. Now, Gootsy. Is Gootsy a Triceras? It is, right? It doesn't look like a Triceras, but it is one.
Oh, I believe we just. I believe that's what I looked up, but honestly, my brain is mush at this point.
Yeah, it is very late or early in the morning for you. It is indeed a Triceras, even though it doesn't look like one. So, E. We have Elliotty. So I don't know what the situation is with Bitiniatus, because some of the Bitiniatus specimens here are identified with a subspecies, Growry, which I've never heard of. So I'm leaving them as Bitiniatus for the time being. I have to check.
Such a small nondescript species shouldn't cause this much trouble.
And you would think that. So, Temple, Vernery.
All right. Any chance you have a Quadricornis isentranti there?
We do not. I haven't seen a single Quadricornis, so it seems we don't have Quadricornis.
I would love to see one of those.
Yeah, I would love to see one. I've never seen one in the flesh. Okay. I think we're there in terms of the boxes. Okay. I need to pause off. Oh no. How so? Oh yeah. Yes.
How many trays do you have before?
We have 1 to 5.
5.
6. 6.
6, okay. Yeah, because We can fit everything in here now, but then we have the 4 trays before. So I think we need to.
That's true. But those will all get identified.
Yeah, they need to. Have you looked at these?
Oh, these are not. Oh, it's going to my alphabet.
Yeah.
Damn.
There's 1 full tray of them, I think.
Okay, are these all Hunley? Okay, these are all Hunley.
So, or if you can have more Hunley, we can move from there.
Possibly. That's good. Wait a second. E. And the next one is letter C. Perfect. They just fit nicely right in between. Okay, so we end up with 7 trays of Triceras. 4 trays of Miller. So
Wow.
the largest component of our collection is Triceras.
And I think there's much more Triceras over there.
Yeah.
Why do you
I'm
have
just
so
looking at
many
this,
of
I
the?
can tell.
Why do you have so many of the Millers? Are they
Go on.
a shipment from the zoo or
Very
imported?
popular in the zoo, and then most of them are glass. It's a big chameleon, so they get individual glass. So even though it's any specimens, they take a little space.
Ah, okay.
We do have some very few got specimens. This is excellent data. 3,500 feet. Kangaroo. After rain, collected in 1962 from Nyasaland, which is Malawi. Very nice. So we have some very few wild animals, but for the most part, they're all zoo specimens. The big ones are. So how are we going to solve this space problem?
I think I might even take one more shelf. This.
Oh, that's a good idea. None of these are going to get very tall, exactly. So if we just add a shelf.
Yeah, and then I would probably move a shelf down here so we can move those 2 turtle stuff up here, and then we can have room for.
So what's the plan with those unidentified chameleons?
You have to identify.
They have to be identified, and once they're identified, we'll slot into
whatever.
wherever we have.
Yeah. And then I have a few in my office that needs to be identified.
Okay.
Oh, I need to type them.
Okay. So what's happening with?
Yeah, so we probably will do some down here. But
Right.
also, I really like to have like.
We need space here for sure.
So I will keep this open. So
And even this almost certainly isn't enough space, but we'll get to that problem when we get to it. And then we'll have.
this one needs to be solved also, but it could probably fit still.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Then
for now.
maybe,
That'll
so
come later.
maybe one extra room of tray for Chameleons,
Yes,
and then we can move 2 of those down here.
sure.
I just like.
But the Kenyangia or any? Oh yeah, that comes before Trousers. Okay. So these 3 would go at the bottom. Oh right. Oh yes. Oh, bad at alphabet today. Yes. So Trioceros comes next, and we have. So the problem that we're currently facing is we have 3.5 shelves, but we need to leave a little bit of extra space. Each shelf fits 4 trays. So we have, if we were to squeeze them in, well, we have 3 trays where these can theoretically go. 3 shelves that can go, which would be 12. Okay. But we have not only the 7 trays of Trioceros plus the Mallers that we have. Although alone would be too much, right? But we also have 4 trays on the right-hand side behind the screen. They're all identified somehow need to be slot into the collection. So it's a bit of a logistical challenge.
All right. Well, Mark, I think it's a good time for me to say goodbye.
Yeah. Super.
I would say
This is
thank
fun.
you so much for doing this. This was such a blast seeing what goes on and going through this collection. So I want to thank you and Daniel so much for hosting this.
It was really, really enjoyable for us as well. And I hope if anybody has questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Mark Scherz or on Facebook, although you're more likely to get me on Twitter. And yeah, I hope you have enjoyed a little bit of what we're doing. It's a bit chaotic. I apologize for that. The signal hasn't been the best, but anyway,
Hey.
a small point.
That's the adventure. All right, Mark and Daniel, come on in and get a close-up so we can get a good look at you. Oh, you got it.
Well,
And say, all right, goodbye all.
Thanks a lot.
you.
Ciao.